Do you find yourself running on autopilot? Do you find yourself wondering sometimes who has been doing the speaking? Yeah. You find yourself in interactions with other people where you're just kind of running on your rails. You're playing a role. Almost as if you can just kind of deliver your lines, then you can get off stage and revert back to being yourself. But in the moment, you need to be kind of safe. You need to be controlled. You need the outcome to be predictable. And so you kind of take refuge in a script. And so rather than being your authentic, relatable self, you kind of fall into that autopilot because it's safer, more comfortable. If there is a story running inside of yourself which kind of says, well, I'm not really sure I fit within this environment. Yeah, this is not really me. This is not really my type of job. It's not really feeling in flow. You can find yourself creating this autopilot mask that just runs, that delivers what you think is expected of you, and then you kind of come back home in the evening, take off the mask and become yourself again, sort of thing. Yeah. The other one, which I found absolutely fascinating, which you don't get many opportunities to see, but when it comes, wow, is it wild, is when you meet someone that you haven't seen for a few years. You know, maybe it's an ex, an old flame, or maybe it's an old colleague that you haven't seen for years, or a friend that you haven't seen for years. And you just kind of slip into, without even thinking about it, the way that you interacted with them. It's as if the roles that we play with different people are contextually decided upon and then habituated. It's important to us that we are accepted, that we are relevant, that we are approved of. But what I'm talking about is a circumstance where this has gone too far, where you learned certain things in the past that are now creating habitualized ways of presenting yourself today. Maybe it's a way of maintaining a veneer of perfectionism. You find yourself delivering your role. You find yourself gripping very, very tightly to the script. Yeah. The problem is when it gets to that point, you're never in the present moment. You're kind of your policeman, your radar is constantly looking out for XYZ, and therefore the amount of energy that you are placing on the conversation is relatively small. And there's all of this effort being put out onto evaluating the context of the response, sort of thing. So you're not in the present moment, you're not sucking the life out of the interaction. There's no joy in that. And as well as that, you're not really paying attention to the other people. And so rather than it being a relatable conversation, it's more of a diatribe. It's more of a verbal diarrhea, which is just being flooding. It's just coming out so that you can kind of deliver your lines and then run off stage and be yourself again. Yeah. So let's get on to the important thing, which is what to do. Okay. Number one is notice it. Notice it when it's going on. Now, there's two things. If you're lucky, you really do notice it whilst you are in flow, whilst you're in process. So you meet up with someone, you start your conversation, and there is a certain point halfway through delivering your lines where you suddenly realize that you've kind of lost the immediacy of the conversation. You've lost that interaction. The communication has gone and instead it's become a one-sided delivery. Yeah. So if you're lucky, you notice that whilst you're doing it. If you're unlucky, maybe you only realize it afterwards. There's a sort of a gasp of horror. It's like, oh God, what did I do? Sort of thing. If you get it whilst you're there, the thing which is important to do is just pause, find a way to break that trance. You want a moment to collect your thoughts, to be able to respond rather than to react on autopilot. Yeah. So that requires a moment of reflection. You have to become aware of it. You have to take in a breath and then you have to come up with something different. Okay. Now, it can be a little bit scary, but one way that I've noticed that is absolutely wondrous, that is not my idea. This I read in a book called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, which is to kind of when you will notice this to express yourself through an observation and as a wish for something better. So I observe that I've just been blathering on for the last 5 minutes. And maybe I'm doing this because of XYZ, because this is an important conversation, or because I want you to feel at ease, or whatever it may be. But what I've noticed is that we've lost that kind of relationship. And would it be okay to reestablish, to recalibrate, and to notice what it is which is alive in the two of us while we're having the conversation? Something to that extent. Now, that's a very flowery language that comes from Marshall Rosenberg, but you can express a certain element of your own vulnerability, and it will instantly raise your credibility, because you're saying, okay, I've just become aware that, and that's not working for either of us. So can we please start again, sort of thing. Yeah, you can get back on track. You can break that trance. This is very, very important. But if you don't notice it during the meeting, you don't notice it during that conversation, you deliver your lines, you go, and then you think, what on earth is going on? I'm just like a robot. I didn't really learn anything new. That can be a very, very important way of distinguishing this. Then journal it. Okay. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of journaling. So what you're trying to do here, assume that it's a bit like learning to drive. You've learned something, and then you've got to the point with learning it that you've habituated it, you've handed it over to your subconscious, and it's now running in the background. Journaling allows you to bring what is habituated back up to the conscious level, so that you can then re-evaluate it. You can look at it and you can say, okay, so does this still work for me? So you're going to find a moment, ideally during the same day, where you can just kind of be with yourself. You can take maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes and process your thoughts on this matter. So start off the way to journal. So maybe you do it in the evening when you get back home and you've got a few moments to yourself. Start off just by writing anything which is in your mind, just for 5 minutes. Just do a kind of verbal dump, a mental dump, and then you just kind of throw that away. And then write about your observations of what occurred during that interaction. Yeah. So you're kind of noticing what was going on in the moment. And then once you've done that for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and bearing in mind, you're not doing this to read to somebody else. This is for your own use. So you can be as realistic, as fatalistic as you choose to be. There's no point in being particularly judgmental. Just be an observer and state your truth about it, because the way to change is to know where you are. Yeah. So having done that, having written your observations, if you need any prompts to kind of start to get it flowing, to make progress, ask yourself, maybe there was one person, or maybe there were a few people, depending upon the context. Yeah. What do I know about this person? What do they know about me? What don't I know about this person, and what don't they know about me? So what is it that I wanted to get out of this conversation? And ideally, what is it that they would want to get out of this conversation? Or you might want to ask, what is it that I would give to this person? And what would they like to give me? What which can be highly, highly illuminating is, what did I deny this person? Can really get to the importance, the nub of what is true in yourself. And maybe equally, what did they deny you? Because it's a two-sided thing, a conversation. Yeah. So you're getting to the point of what was alive in this conversation and what was lacking in this conversation. What was my intention? What was their goal? And to what extent did you do that? And to what extent were you hiding away from that? Yeah. And then, having gone through that kind of factual assumption, let's say, the next thing is to dig into your emotions. Okay. So once you've done that, kind of put that piece of paper to the side, and then ask yourself a whole series of far deeper questions about this interaction, but also about your feelings in the now, but with relation to that. Yeah. Who or what was I afraid of during that interaction? Am I afraid of in that interaction? Maybe what is it that I wanted to be in control of? What is it that I need to control? And that might be a thing, or it might be a person. Whose approval is it that I want? Whose love is it that I want? Is there something in particular that I want to prove to the other person, or equally to disprove? You know, is there a sense that I need to be right and therefore I'm delivering what I consider to be a persuasive argument? Are there elements, are there things that I want to avoid in that conversation? Are there things that I want to hide from? Equally, are there things that I want to be separated from? Things that I don't want a light to be shone upon? And maybe more conceptually, what's my catastrophe? What's the worst thing that can happen? And am I able to let go of that? Am I able to let go of the fear of that? Yeah. What is it that I am resisting? Or can I trust myself that with this sense of heightened observation, heightened awareness, the next time that this occurs, because believe me, it will occur because it's a fixed habit, it's a habitual thing which is going on in the background. But when it occurs, you'll notice it. And then you'll be able to pause, you'll be able to respond instead of react. Because the end result of all of this is that you understand yourself more thoroughly, more comprehensively, deeper. So the next time you do it, it'll be a little bit better. The next time you do it, it'll be a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, until you're no longer doing that automatic habit. You've replaced it with something far more useful. Yeah? All right. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Until next time. Cheers. Bye.